Hello, welcome to Challenge to Build. In today's video, I am going to do my best to show you how I took this and turned it into this. Over the last couple of videos, I spent some time building a temporary paint booth. I went through some of the steps I took to paint this hood, and while painting in the final coat of clear, I sagged or ran the clear up in the front radius of the hood on either side. And at the end of the painting video, I said that I would come back out the following day and show you the hood. Well, I can honestly tell you that it has been about a week since I painted the hood. I did come out the following day only to find the sags and then deal with a lot of frustration. In the coming days, I spent some time sanding the sags and blending the hood. I was going to make a video about that, but because of my time constraints and just the amount of frustration I was dealing with for this hood, this thing has been a thorn in my side for the last week. And it's actually been over a year since I worked on the Suburban and said that this hood needed to go on there. So just like anything else, sometimes good things are worth waiting for. And this is the result. So I had a small blend here, one up in either corner, and over the last couple of days I've been working at blocking this down, polishing this back, and this video is going to show you some of the steps, or all of the steps, that I took to bring back the shine from this. So that's the premise for this video. Hopefully you learned something, and it's time for me to challenge the build. All right, so the key to the success of this polishing project is a good cup of coffee. It's all dependent on the coffee, right? I'm only kidding. First tip, quick tip. Generally I use paper. I'm out of paper, so I grabbed a trash bag. Polishing and wet sanding can be extremely messy. And if you don't have an apron to use, the next best thing is to make one, and using a piece of paper or simply a trash bag, take it. One size fits all. Bam, done. Now we got a work apron. Something that's disposable, something that's cheap, and it works really, really well. Secondly is going to be all of the equipment that is going to be needed to do this. Starting with a sanding block. I do have a dual action sander. You are going to need a polisher. I have a kind of like an angle grinder rotary polisher here, variable speed. I actually just got this off of Amazon to do this job. I had been using the Torque X dual action, and I just needed something a little bit more aggressive, so I went out and got the rotary polisher. Along with the rotary polisher, you're going to need a good set of polishing pads. These are from TCP Global. These are the 8-inch. This was a package that I bought that had everything from a coarse cut pad all the way out to the fine polish. You are going to need some microfiber towels. I really like using the microfiber paper towels. These seem to be a nice way to use those. Obviously, you're going to need some sandpaper. This I got from S&F Steadfast. I got a 1000 through 3000 grit, and then I also got the 400 to 1000 grit, a couple pieces of each. Spray bottle with some water is how I've been applying the water. And then finally, the polishing compounds. I am using the V-Series compound from Chemical Guys. I used this back on my Suburban for the first time, and Chemical Guys makes a nice product, and I've been really impressed with the V-Series. And it makes it pretty simple to understand because it starts out at the V32 and then as you work the steps out, you wind up at their final polish, which is the V38. So throughout the video, I'll kind of put up little pop-up links for the products. And if you really want to find out the information, you can look in the description. All of the products that I'm using will be there for your viewing pleasure. So first up in the process, I have my sanding block, a bottle of water, and 1000 grit sandpaper. I'm going to start by blocking the hood out with 1000 grit. I have my blend here, so I have to kind of sand back some of the clear coat and then block off the overspray and start cutting the orange peel out of the hood. I am by no means a professional at this. I would consider myself a beginner. I do have experience in cutting and polishing, but very, very minimal. This may not be the video to watch as far as, you know, how to cut and polish. This is the steps I took. And if you are a beginner like me, you know, I can verify that you can achieve success. However, you will need to have the right equipment. You will need to have a lot of patience. This is definitely something that I've learned by trial and error. And you need to set aside a lot of time. Patience, time, and perseverance is what goes into the final result of getting that shine. I have that worked all the way out to the V36. I still have to put my final polish on that, but I wanted to get this blocked and polished back before I put my final polish on because I know that's going to get dirty. So here we go. You're probably like, come on, dude, just get to work already, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and wet down my block, wet down the area that I'm working, and here we go. And you can hear the amount of overspray on the hood, and it will start to go away here soon. Cutting and polishing is a very labor-intensive and time-consuming process, so I can promise you that you will not see the entire, you know, length of video and how much time it takes me. I will talk about how long it takes me to do this. So some of it will be time-lapsed, and I will let you know where I'm at in the steps, where I'm at in the sandpaper, and all of these things associated with this process. The nice thing about using a block is you can use it like a squeegee too. I know 3M, and I'm sure there's other companies out there, but I know specifically 3M makes like a rubber squeegee style block that makes it real nice to do this. This way here you can kind of squeegee it off and it will start to show the orange peel getting cut out, any imperfections, any dirt, bugs, all these different things that you know, we're ultimately trying to work out of the paint. I specifically have to keep an eye on my blend. This is where I did the blend here on this corner, and I am looking at like the blend line where my paint and clear was. So this way here I can start working it out. And then don't forget, we're going to step it out to 3000 grit. Ultimately, the 1000 will allow you to cut some of the imperfections out faster. This way here you don't have to work so hard. So a few things to kind of take into consideration while doing this kind of work with the specific part of sanding it and blocking it. One little tip would be when you're trying to block down the clear, you want to try to remain working in one direction with the block. This kind of sanding is where you do not want that cross-hatching kind of pattern to come in there. So if you can, sometimes you can't avoid it, but obviously in this long stretch, I'm able to block in long strokes. Another tip is if you are working contoured surfaces or surfaces that have any kind of body detail, you know, dips, curves, edges, straight, hard lines, different things like that. For instance, I have this body line here in the hood. You do not want to sand too far up to that body line or whatever piece of contour you are working. In my case, it kind of steps in like this. I'll give you a close-up here in just a second. And the reason you do not want to get too close to that is because when it comes time to polish, you're going to still need to polish out those sanding scratches, and sometimes it can be a real pain in the butt to get the polisher in there to polish it back to a shine. Also, in those detailed contoured areas, when the polishing wheel is in there, it gives you a better chance to kind of burn the clear up because you're putting so much heat into such a small area, trying to get them sanding scratches out. So just be aware of something like that as well. Final thought would be work in small areas. They generally say to polish in like 2x2 squares. This way here you can kind of gauge where you're at in your work. You're not getting too far ahead of yourself and you're staying kind of focused on some of the areas that need to be blocked. Like for instance, back here, I did a blend back here and I'm starting to see the clear kind of roll back a little bit. So I'm going to have a little bit of work to do back here. And it allows you to kind of focus on some of the other impurities. In this case, a decent amount of orange peel up in here, and there's quite a few bigger specks of dirt. So I have quite a bit of blocking left to do. Just even in the 1000 grit before I step it out to 2000. So I'm going to continue on and I will bring it back to the 2000 grit here in just a little while. So while down in this contoured area, there are two more things that I want to bring your attention to that I just thought of. One of which is in the tooling. I also forgot to mention that I have these little isolator pads for the DA sander. These are really nice to be able, these are hook and loop, and they're really nice to be able to put onto the sandpaper that you're using. For one, it gives you something a little bit more substantial to hold on to. And two, they are of a foam backing, so it kind of adds a little bit of forgiveness in some of the areas in which you are sanding. Final thought as well is you want to make sure that your sandpaper stays clean and lubricated as far as keeping any major dirt specks off of the sandpaper, because if you get contaminated sandpaper, what will happen is it will embed itself in the sandpaper and then leave deeper sanding scratches in the clear coat, which become a pain in the butt to work out if they get in there. So be pretty liberal with the water. Lubricate and wet down the areas that you're working and keep the sandpaper nice and clean. It keeps it nice and cool as well. The nice thing about the foam back is with this contoured area, I have to sand this area because this is where my blend was. So I got to sand some of that overspray off. And this makes it really convenient and really forgiving in sanding these contoured areas. And along with keeping the sandpaper clean and wet during your process of sanding, you're going to want to make sure that you have enough sandpaper to do the job, because you're going to want to change it out periodically. So this way here, you get a nice clean cut and keeps from having any major sanding scratches show up with contaminated sandpaper. One thing to keep in mind is I repainted this hood, so I know how much material has been applied to this hood. So as I'm sanding it, I'm not really concerned about breaking through the clear coat because I know how much material I put on. I put a solid, probably 4 coats of clear on, and considering that I'm working with such high grit sandpaper, 1000, 2000, and 3000, I have a decent amount of layers to sand off. Now, if this was a factory OEM paint job, obviously, you know, a completely different scenario. So depending on what you're working on, and depending how much material has been applied or what material you are sanding, keep in mind with how long you sand in one area, how much material you are removing. And this is when I said I learned by making a lot of mistakes in trial and error. This is where that trial and error kind of comes into play. The reason I had to do the blend on the middle of the hood was because I got a little carried away when I was polishing and I melted the clear, and I made the clear bubble up, and in turn I had to repaint a little area on the center of the hood. So this has definitely been trial by fire, and hopefully with any little bit of skill and luck here, I will be able to get this thing looking like $1 million, which, considering the one side looks that way, I feel pretty confident about this other side as well. And as you can see, I still have a little bit more work to do in a few different areas where you can see where the dirt was, and there's still a few little imperfections that are coming out that I will take out with the 1000 grit before I step it out to 2000 grit. There's a couple over here. There's a couple sitting in here over in this area. So probably a half a dozen or so little spots that I want to focus on that I'll continue to block out, and then we'll switch it over to 2000 grit. All right, so at this point in time, I have probably about an hour, hour and a half or so into blocking the hood with 1000 grit, and I got it to the point where I am pretty satisfied. There are still just a few minor imperfections throughout the hood. The area that I'm most concerned with is my blend area, specifically on this one here and down here on this kind of roll near the edge here. And I think a lot of that has to do with the prep work that was done when I did the blend. I'm not sure. So I spent a significant amount of time trying to block in these areas, and in here I can kind of see better progress, and I feel like it keeps rolling back. So I stopped with the 1000 grit. I'm going to switch to the 2000 grit and continue through the process. And at this point, it's more of like a wash, rinse, repeat. I will show you a little bit of the 2000 grit. It's basically the same steps as the 1000, but obviously we're just going up in the grit to try to lessen the scratches. Now we're going to step the scratches out as we go. This is a very time-consuming process. The more time that you spend in the sanding and the block work, the easier it will be when it comes to the polishing time. You won't have to work so hard with the polish, the polisher, and it just makes it an overall easier experience. So I'm going to grab the block again. I'm going to switch to 2000, and I'm going to just basically do the same exact steps as you have already watched. So I will show just a little bit of the 2000, and then we'll come back for the 3000 because I'm going to switch my method. Rather than blocking, I'm going to go to the dual action sander. So here we go. All right, are you still with me? I've now sanded this hood out from starting with 1000 grit. I've blocked it with 2000 grit, and now I am going to start the process of 3000 grit, but I'm going to switch my methods. Rather than blocking, I'm going to switch to a dual action sander. This is from Max XT. This is an electric sander. So obviously water and electric generally don't mix, so I will have to be careful using this. I'm not using a lot of water, so I've not had a problem in the past. I'm not saying I'm not gonna have a problem now, but this is the method that I'm choosing. Technically and smartly, I guess, you would wanna use a pneumatic dual action sander, but my air compressor is not big enough in order to do that. So electric is what I'm going to do. As far as the process and how I'm doing it, it basically follows the same steps as the block. It's just that I have a power block in my hand now. You want to keep it flat, and same process, wet it down, keep it clean, switch out your sandpaper, and start the process. And the higher the grit with the 3000, you will start to actually bring the shine back with the 3000 grit on the sander. Because I don't know if you remember in the very, very beginning of this video, I mentioned something about the Torque X polisher. The Torque X polisher is a DA dual action polisher, very similar to this. This is a dual action sander. So it spins and oscillates. This one has a 5mm orbit. If you are using a dual action sander, dual action sanders have different orbits in the motion that they move around. You want to use a really fine orbit for polishing. I think the finest that they have is 3/16. So I'm going to knuckle down, pay attention to the work that I'm doing. We're going to time lapse this, and we will get the polishing here very, very soon. Well, we finally made it. I finally made it. You finally made it. To the point of the video to where we can actually bring back some of that shine, hopefully. As long as I have done all of my previous steps properly, the polishing part should go relatively smoothly. Quick recap, I started with 1000 grit on a block, I stepped it to 2000 grit on a block, and then I just finished up 3000 on the DA. I feel pretty confident. Some of the shine has started to come back. If you really want it to go crazy, you could step it out to 5000 grit on a DA, which would make polishing even that much more easy. I did say in the video previously, the more time you spend in the blocking and sanding phases, the easier the polishing will be. And the farther that you step out the sanding grits, the easier it will be. So this video is relatively long, but that only captures, a really small portion of what actually has gone into even just half of this hood. It generally takes me 2 to 3 times longer to do any project once I get involved in filming and editing a video. So I definitely could have got it done faster had I just been working on it, but I wouldn't be able to share my steps and progress and some of my reward if I don't do this kind of stuff. So here we are with the polisher. I did go to Amazon and bought a budget rotary polisher from a company that I can't even pronounce. It's LDHTHOPI. I got I believe this is a 7-inch rotary polisher. It is variable speed from 500. Yes, 500 to 3,300 revolutions per minute. I got bigger polishing pads. This polisher came with 6-inch pads. I wanted something a little bit more substantial because of the surface area that I'm working. So I picked up a set of TCP Global 8-inch waffle pads. I call them waffle pads, basically like an egg crate polishing. The nice thing about the TCP Global's pads, if I can get one here, you're going to want to do your best to keep these clean and free of contaminants, just like the sandpaper. But on the back of the TCP Global pads, you can see, hopefully, it gives you a layout of what they're rated. So red is the heavy cut, which I have the red and orange. Nice little tip is, as you are using them and finished using them, get 1-gallon Ziploc bags, put them in the Ziploc bag. So this way here, like I just said, you can keep them free of contaminants. I have them separated by a blue microfiber towel. But the red and the orange are heavy and medium cut. The blue is a light cut. The green is a soft polish. And then the black is a final polish. So super easy, clean and clear to read. I have my blue, again, in a 1-gallon Ziploc bag. As far as the polish, I'm going to use the V series from Chemical Guys, starting with the V32. Then I'm going to jump to the V36 because the V34 is kind of a hybrid, what they consider to be a hybrid. It's like a cross between, in my opinion, the 32 and the 36. So we're going to go 32 with probably the red and maybe the orange pad, depending on how it polishes back. Then we're going to jump to the V36 using the blue light cut pad. And then finally, we're going to jump to the V38 using either the green or the black polishing pad, which is kind of how I got to this step here. This is taken out all the way to the blue pad. I didn't want to go to the final polish because I wanted to bring this back, trying to get to this level, and then we'll do a V38 on the entire hood. So that is going to be the scope of the process. Again, it's more of like a wash, rinse, repeat, because just like the sanding, we start with the lower number and then work out to the greater number. So 32, 34, and then finally the 38. So hopefully I've been able to teach you a few things, maybe what not to do or what to do. And with any luck, we will bring the hood back to a final shine. One thing I did notice is as you're using water in the 3000 grit, you can almost use the water as like a clear coat. I did notice my blend is slightly darker than the original paint, but at this point, I will just be happy if we can bring the shine back to this level and get this dang thing on the truck, which is the final goal. So with all of that said, it is time to continue to challenge the build. So what you just watched in 2 to 3 minutes is approximately about 30 minutes worth of my time. I did a kind of like a first initial cut on this side of the hood, and for the time invested, it looks pretty good. There are a few areas that I am going to go over again. There is a significant swirl mark right here, and there are a few sanding scratches along this side. Now, I am definitely no professional at this. The reason I am going about doing this is because I'm trying to learn myself the process in which to cut and polish well, I guess you could say. And I made a boo-boo again. Like I told you in the very beginning of this video, this is trial and error. If you are a beginner at polishing and sanding and cutting and all of these things, be prepared to make mistakes. It is just part of the learning process. And this, for me, has been a learning process. On here, right through this body line, I recall saying in the video, be careful of how much pressure you put on the polisher coming through here because of how much heat is created by the polisher. Let's rewind and I'll play you that segment. I have this body line here in the hood. You do not want to sand too far up to that body line or whatever piece of contour you are working. In my case, it kind of steps in like this. I'll give you a close-up here in just a second. And the reason you do not want to get too close to that is because when it comes time to polish, you're going to still need to polish out those sanding scratches, and sometimes it can be a real pain in the butt to get the polisher in there to polish it back to a shine. Also, in those detailed contoured areas, when the polishing wheel is in there, it gives you a better chance to kind of burn the clear up, because you're putting so much heat into such a small area, trying to get them sanding scratches out. So just be aware of something like that as well. I clearly did not listen to my own advice. I said it in the beginning, I got to doing the part and I messed up. Right in this little body roll right here, I came in with the polisher and it got too hot, and what ended up happening was I melted and wrinkled the clear just a little bit, but it's just enough to, for one, piss me off. Two, enough that in order to repair that spot, I'd actually have to do another small blend and put some clear on it. But I'm not going to do that. What I ended up doing was taking 1,000 grit and stepping it out to 2,000 and 3,000 to try to get some of the wrinkles out, and then just polish it back as best as I could. And that is how I'm going to leave it, because I need to get this done and I need to get it on the truck because this paint booth is blocking my garage bay and I need to get this done. So that is how that's staying, but I do want to make mention of it because I made a mistake. There's a flaw in there. It bothers me, it's gonna bother me, but I have to move on. So what I'm going to do is try to cut out and polish out that real big swirl mark. I'll try to give you a picture of it so that way you can see what I'm talking about. Hit those couple areas and then come back and then move to the light cut, which I'm going to use the 36. I'm going to come over to use the V36 with the blue waffle pad, and then final polish with the V38. So little update on where I'm at, where I'm headed, and what you are about to see. Alrighty. We are finally on the final step. It's been a long process. It's been a long video. If you've by any chance watched the entire video, I greatly appreciate it, but I highly doubt that you did. You probably scrolled through the scroll bar quite a bit, which is fine too. But it is time for the V38. The V38 is going to be the finishing polish. And I am going to go right to using the black finishing pad, along with using a clean microfiber towel. I can say that this has been quite the process for me. And hopefully I have taught you something of maybe how to do it, and in this case, what not to do. But we're going to do the final polish on the entire hood. Hold on. It would help if I remove the cap or the cover on these things. Yes. No, this one doesn't have one. Ay, ay, ay. It's been a long day. Maybe I already did it. Let's see. Yes, I must have already did it. All right, let's try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4. A little liberal for the first one. Whoops. You can tell I'm getting tired. Hopefully I don't mess it up anymore. working process that was. I'm calling it done. That sigh completes the week and today and this video and this hood and everything about this project. Oh my goodness. I know it's not even perfect. I did make a few mistakes along the way between the blends, boogering up this little corner up here with the polisher. But throughout this entire process, I was trying to come up with some kind of catchy reminder, or I don't even know what you call it, but I finally figured out the 4 P's of polishing. And they are patience, persistence, practice, and all of those lead to perfection. And I have to work on the 3, especially just practicing. And I would encourage you, if you are a beginner in polishing, hopefully this video has kind of translated well. In the video, looking at it, you see a lot of reflections. You can clearly see my reflection in this from what we started with to now or today. Quite the significant change. However, the video does not show all of the little imperfections that I can see, and we really won't know what it looks like until this hood is finally on the Suburban. And ultimately, it's going to sit outside anyway. It's kind of funny because I spent all this time, money in trying to reach perfection, and I know once this goes on the Suburban, it's just going to sit outside. It's going to get rained on. Little secret, I don't even wash my vehicles. So it's kind of funny that I spent all this time, but it was a learning process, and it's something that I want to get better at. And the only way I'm going to get better at is by practicing. So if you, a little shout out to all the guys and gals out there that do detailing as a professional trade. Shout out to all of you. For those of you who gawk at their prices for what they want to polish your car, if you watch this, maybe you won't gawk so much anymore. I know for a fact I left out a ton of information as far as how to use the polisher, pressures applied, how much polish to put on, all these different variables that will come through time and practice. Everybody has their own opinion. Everybody has their own process. If you ask different people on how to do something, you want to gather all of that information, compile it, and then come up with your own method. Was a long day today, and this week has just been brutal with this thing. Very frustrating, but to see the results that I have, it is rather rewarding. As far as all of the equipment today, you can find all of the information in the description. There are going to be links down there for the majority of what I used. The polisher, I can say, worked really, really well. The polisher that I bought is a 6 to 7 inch. I know some of the information kind of flip-flopped a little bit. With the bigger 8-inch waffle pads, there was more drag on the polisher, so you had to use it at the higher speeds. However, it still worked. It is something that I would buy again and use again. The polish, this is my second time using it. The Chemical Guys V-Series, you know, I'm talking it up because I do like it. And the only way you're going to know is if you get some and try it out for yourself. Chemical Guys makes a great product line. What else? The sandpaper. Really, the only tool that really didn't work that well, I think, in this whole project was me, with the few mistakes that I made. But it is what it is. And the next time you see this project and this hood, we will be installing it on the 2500 Blackout project from over a year ago. That's coming in the shop to do a recap. So really all that's left to say is get out there, go challenge your build. Remember, let's see if I can remember what they are. Persistence, patience, persistence, Practice leads to perfection. I still have a little bit of practicing to do myself. If you have watched this entire video, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know it was a long one, and until the next video, thank you for watching. I'm done.